Good evening, everyone. It is March 9th at 7 o'clock, and this is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Finance Commission. At the beginning of the meeting in the room, I'm joined by Councillor Greenberg from Ward 1, Councillor Malachy from Ward 3, Councillor Charn from Ward 5, and Councillor Bixby from Ward 6. Online, I am joined by Councillor Krinsman from Ward 4 and Councillor Silber from Ward 8. And that is everyone I see from the council. For now, we have only 3 items on our agenda tonight. The first is 100-26, the reappointment of Ron Mendez as the city's treasurer and collector. Ms. Lemieux, let me recognize you to introduce Mr. Mendez and have a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is my honor and privilege to bring Mr. Mendez before you as a committee. Our treasurer serves at the pleasure of the mayor, but must be appointed again anytime we have a new mayor. So it's not quite the same as the comptroller's office, but it's a bit of a different role for a department head than most of our other commissioners or department heads. And so our treasurer must be reconfirmed and reappointed because we have a new mayor. Ron Mendez, for any of you who have had any interaction with him, will know that he is incredibly helpful, incredibly knowledgeable, and has, in the 5 years, I think it is, that he has been back with us, because he used to serve as the finance manager for the Department of Public Works years ago. But when he came back as our treasurer, he has standardized so much in Treasury. He has modernized so much. He has automated so much, and he is running that department like a well-oiled machine, oiled as it has never been before. So it is my absolute pleasure thankful, that the mayor has decided to reappoint Ron as our treasurer. And so, Madam Chair, if you would like, I will turn it over to him.
Absolutely, Mr. Mendez.
Okay, thank you very much. Just if you haven't had a chance to meet me, a little bit about my background. I'm also an attorney. I graduated from law school back in 2006, so I've been an attorney 20 years, believe it or not. Time flies. But I began my career in municipal finance back in the late 1990s as the assistant, actually the deputy collector for the town of Lincoln, up on in the 128 region, and since then I've accumulated about 25 years of municipal finance experience, and mostly serving as treasurer collector in 4 different communities, Newton being the most recent, and that's more or less my professional experience. I did, as I mentioned, I'm an attorney as well. I went to law school. My intent in going to law school wasn't to be a lawyer in the traditional sense of representing clients. It was really just to augment my financial background, because my bachelor's degree is in finance, but to augment my bachelor's degree and my experience, my education, just to become a better public manager. Because I found myself in my public management career interpreting a lot of statutes and interpreting a lot of laws, and I felt at the time, 20 years ago, not really competent to do that. So I went to law school and made myself competent to do that. So that's the story behind the law degree. But beyond that, I'm happy to answer any questions about my background or anything really about Treasury or any of the initiatives that we've undertaken over the last 5 years. So I'll leave it up to any of the committee members if you have any questions.
Thank you. Do we have questions or comments from members of the committee? Councillor Malachy, then Councillor Charm.
Okay, thank you. I'm really happy you're continuing on, and I noticed in my last bill of the excise tax, it appears we're going to have an option to sort of direct debit our taxes automatically, and I think water bills too. I haven't quite figured out how to do it yet because I couldn't get my login right, but I was really happy to see that. So I hope that will end up saving us money on postage, although it'll probably.
Yeah. Yeah, the real change is that we are implementing full e-billing. We've had online payments for many years now, but the big change is that in the past we've had e-billing as a supplement to receiving a paper bill in the mail, and we've had a lot of complaints, frankly, from taxpayers that have said, if you're sending me my bill by email, why do I also have to get a piece of paper in the mail? So the law does allow us to have a full e-billing system. It's a purely voluntary system on the part of taxpayers. Taxpayers have to opt in. They can't be required to e-bill. But if they opt in, then they can choose from a couple of different options for receiving their bill electronically. And if they do choose to receive a bill electronically, then they can opt out of getting the paper bill in the mails, which obviously saves the city the cost of the paper, the postage, and it also, has the environmental benefit of not using all that paper. So hopefully that is something that people take a lot advantage of. We just sent out about 57,000 excise tax bills to the entire city, and we already had, just by virtue of the fact that people had signed up organically, we already had 800 people that did not get a paper tax bill because they had signed up already. So we're hoping to expand that program in the years to come.
Right, yeah, we can get rid of those return envelopes, which I learned a while back that you don't take back and reuse. So, thank you.
Counselor Charm.
Yes, hi, Mr. Mendez. We haven't had the opportunity to meet in person yet. It's nice to meet you electronically. I'm one of the newer members of the council. I was struck by the description of you in the mayor's letter that said that you were an effective and forward-thinking municipal innovator. And I think that there's a lot of us who would love to be thinking about ways that we can be innovating and be more efficient. So I would love to just, hear if you have maybe some of the newer programs or ideas that you've been implementing. Sounds like this is one, or any others that you think we could in the next term.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think that's really the wave of the future, and has been for a long time now, is just utilizing technology and different ways of figuring out ways of using technology to just make services better. Just one example, we used to receive a lot of taxpayers pay their tax bills using their online bill pay through their bank. And what that resulted in the office was we would get piles of these checks that we would have to manually process. And what I did was I worked with our lockbox to implement what's called a lookup system. And overnight we transformed a manual posting process to something that's automated. So thousands and thousands of payments that used to come in, literally we would get boxes of these checks in the mail that our staff would have to manually process. And now that's all done pretty much by a scanner, because we've automated that process. And now my staff, instead of spending all their time data keying these payments in, they can spend time answering the phones and responding to customer questions, which really has helped dramatically, because we used to get a lot of complaints that we couldn't answer the phone and things like that, because we had to spend time keying in payments. So now that we have that automated, we can spend more time speaking with taxpayers and helping them understand their bill. And I think a lot of people have appreciated that. So that's been a real success. And that's just one example of how we've just sort of used technology to just do things in a different way, just to think outside of the box sometimes.
Is there anything that's still on your wish list?
Sorry?
Is there anything that's still on your wish list?
A few things. There's a few things. Some of the ways we pay bills, we did implement a system to pay invoices through an electronic system called PayMode X, which provides a secure way of paying invoices electronically. And we now pay most of our invoices by ACH instead of by mailing checks, by paper checks in the mail. There's still some vendors that are holdouts, and there are some vendors that actually have their own secure platforms to pay them that we could be using. And I do want to work with the comptroller's office to figure out a way of of putting a system together that we can utilize their electronic platform to pay invoices electronically in a way that avoids mailing a check. Um, Not only because of the postage and the cost, but also the security aspect of it as well, because even the post office says that checks get stolen out of the mail and there's a security aspect to mailing checks. So we want to try to pay as many checks through secure online platforms as often as we can. And then there's another layer of PayModeX where we can pay vendors that are set up as sole proprietors through an electronic platform as well, so that we again get more and more people off of getting checks in the mail and getting onto electronic platforms. And so there's a lot of different ways that we can attack this, because there's still, in my opinion, too many checks going in the mail. So we've pretty much got all of our payroll down to, I think all of our unions have negotiated pretty much all, maybe one holdout, but we've got all of our unions agreed to take direct deposit for payroll purposes. So I think we're in the 95+% range where almost all of our employees are getting paid by direct deposit. So that's a huge, because most of our dollars go out to payroll. So that money all going out electronically is a huge advantage to the city, because that's a lot less paper, a lot less administration, a lot less trouble all around. So just more and more trying to get payment technology implemented so that we get things more and more efficient.
Mr. Mendez, one question for me. Can you just briefly address your role and approach to managing the city's cash and investments? I think I'm particularly interested in having you touch on the investments piece. I mean, I know a lot more about the cash piece, but I think having everybody just hear a brief overview, that would be helpful. The investments piece has come up, with respect to a few of the different funds that we have. And I think a lot of members don't necessarily really know that we have instruments like that in the city, and that essentially falls to you to manage them.
Yeah, we do, and there are some laws we have to be cognizant of there for the regular general operating cash of the city. So you're thinking the tax receipts that come in that we use to pay payroll and expenses of the city, the regular operating cash, we're limited to what we can invest that in money market mutual fund that's managed through the state treasurer's office. It's called the Massachusetts Municipal Depository Trust. It's a secure, it's something that was set up many years ago under state law that the state treasurer's office manages for cities and towns all across the state, to allow us to have that investment vehicle. That's one investment vehicle that we can use. We can also set up an investment fund to invest in U.S. Treasury bills or short-term Treasury notes with a term of less than a year, so that we can have other investment options that are secure. Beyond that, we can invest in, we pretty much can hold money in money market accounts and banks and the like. We're not allowed to invest in credit unions. We can't put money in a credit union. That's forbidden for some reason. But beyond that, that's the general operating cash of the city. But beyond that, we have the stabilization fund, we have trust funds, we have some other funds that allow, because those funds are not intended to cover operating expenses and you don't need to maintain liquidity, you can actually invest in some longer term instruments. So, for example, we have some trust funds. An example is the Chafin Trust Fund or the Cousins Trust Fund. Some are scholarship funds. The Chafin Trust Fund, for example, is a scholarship fund that is managed by a board that invests in the market. They invest in the stock market, and because Newton has long ago adopted a local option statute that allows us to invest just basically using what's called the prudent investor standard under the law, the Chafin Trust Board is allowed to invest with my office and myself being the custodian of the assets of the fund. They can invest that fund in prudent investments in the stock market, in bonds, in mutual funds, and the like. They just have to maintain that prudent investor standard, which is a standard that's governed, that has a lot of jurisprudence behind it. So there's that option. There are some other funds that are not trust funds that we are not allowed to use the prudent investor standard. We are limited to what's called there's a legal list of investments that is managed through the commissioner of banks. So, for example, the stabilization fund, if we were to invest the stabilization fund beyond what we have right now, which is US T-bills or the Massachusetts Municipal Depository Trust, we could invest the stabilization fund in other investments, but we're limited to the legal list, this legal list of investments. And this legal list is it's if you look at it, it's kind of a problematic list. It's something if we were to go into the legal list, we really should take a hard look at it. If for no other reason than the fact that the number one stock on the list is Altria Corporation, formerly known as Philip Morris. Believe it or not, cigarettes is a allowable investment on that list. So it's one of the things that we really need to look at that list if we're ever going to go in that direction. But it is something that is an option that is available to us if we wanted to go in that direction. So there are some options available, and we do have an investment policy that allows us some flexibility here in the city that has been adopted many years ago. And then we do, of course, have the limitation that the city enacted a number of years ago to divest out of fossil fuels. And I think there's another divestment, if I'm remembering.
The Sudan.
Sudan, yes, that's right, Sudan. Yes, which we've implemented those, and we actually, interestingly enough, when we divested out of fossil fuels, our investment funds actually did better because fossil fuels come with a lot of volatility, as we're learning this week. The whole fossil fuel industry just comes with a lot of volatility, and when you factor that out, you just factor out a lot of volatility out of the investment portfolio. So we've found that we've actually performed with, maybe better isn't the right word, but performed with less volatility in our investment portfolios by divesting out of fossil fuels. So that may, depending on how you look at it, that may have actually been a good decision. So.
Thank you. And that docket item was when I learned the most about this, about the overall investment policy in the city and then the separate rainy day stabilization fund investment policy and the fact that some of these other pockets of investments exist in these other funds. So if anybody ever wants to learn more about it, it's pretty fascinating when you start digging into it. And as you can see, our treasurer knows quite a lot about it. Well, do we have any other questions or a motion?
Happy to move it.
Okay, motion to approve by Councilor Malachy. And before I call for a vote, I just want to echo Ms. Lemieux and the mayor's comments. Mr. Mendez, it's definitely been a pleasure working with you and the time that you and I have overlapped. And I'm really looking forward to being able to continue that, being chair of this committee again and moving forward. So any other comments or questions before we vote? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mendez.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Good night.
We are going to go on to 90-26 which is a request to accept a grant of $113,956 and appropriate $9,290.85 to install electric vehicle charging stations. And we have Co-Director of Sustainability, Sam Nyman, here in the room. If you want to come over to the table. And online, we have Commissioner of Public Buildings, Alex Delta.
Defer to Commissioner Wilkins.
Commissioner. Go ahead.
Evening, everyone. Again, thank you for taking up our docket item. I'm going to turn it over to Sam really quick, but obviously this is an area that we continue to look at and expand, and it's an important program. All our buildings that are coming online have provisions to put in stations, and Sam works all the magic with the grant program. So I'm going to turn it over to Sam. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Great. Thanks for having us here tonight, councilors. So this item is for the funding for 7 charging stations at 3 separate sites in Newton. Obviously, this is work we want to do because we want to continue to support residents, employees, visitors in their ability to purchase and charge an electric vehicle. the funding breakdown here, majority is through grant funding from the state electric vehicle incentive program. And then we're using a little over 9,000 of energy stabilization funding that leverage that larger amount to make it possible. At the Cooper Center, the little bit of the energy stabilization fund money, a little over 4,000, is going to cover some foundation work that we had the general contractor do when they were kind of laying out the overall parking lot, just so they didn't have to dig it back up to run conduit for the stations when we get to installing those. And then there's just a little bit of money, a little over 4,000 at North, that's over the 50,000 grant cap. So that's why we needed to cap the energy stabilization fund there. As for site selection, we chose these because there's both the kind of already existing electrical infrastructure that we could kind of take advantage of without having to spend a lot of money to tap a transformer, trench, there's a lot of associated costs with making a site ready to plop a charging station right on it. So we're avoiding some of those here by looking at these sites. And there's also sufficient current or projected, in the case of the new building, demand for some additional charging stations. In particular, at North, we have 2 stations on the Lowell side, 2 stations on the Walnut Street side, and for close to half the days of any given month, at least on the Lowell side, all 4 ports are in use at a time. So that's great. That's what we'd like to see, but a little bit of demand that we could continue feeding there. So that's this round. We do have plans for a number of other city facilities as well down the road, which hopefully we'll be able to come back for some additional grant money when the time comes, but happy to take any further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have comments or questions? Councilor Bixby and then Councilor Greenberg.
This is great to have more vehicles part of the infrastructure. How do we think about signage and kind of usage of the spaces for?
Are you thinking in particular the sign at the space or kind of wayfinding signs? Because
Well, both. Love wayfinding. I was
Yeah.
thinking about usage of the space. Is it EV only? Is it EV while charging only? Is it what are we?
Yeah, right now, generally our practice is just signing for EV only, and not saying EV only and when actually charging. We've found there has been some cases where we've gotten a couple complaints, but it has been a lot of like cars camping there all day long. It's not a huge thing that I've seen yet, but I don't know that signing it would help too much to change behavior there. We are required by the grant to have at least a minimum of kind of electric vehicles only. And we paint the lines to sort of help to signify that it'll be nice and green with a little EV on it. But that's kind of where we're at currently there. We haven't had any kind of like strong push to enforce, like if a car is there, no longer charging, whether we want to like ticket them or something. We're not there yet. I don't know if we'll ever be. I don't know that it's enough of an issue to really try to explore that, but
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the right path. Probably worth keeping an eye on at some of these locations just to make sure that there is ample parking for everybody. And I think in some ways knowing
Right.
kind of where to go is really helpful, especially if you're in an EV, you might be more likely to be able to park at the EV spot.
Yep.
But just, to make sure that feels like there's still sufficient parking.
Yeah.
Doesn't change the feel of the lot, I guess.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, and balancing the EV spaces with kind of the overall parking demand is something that we're always very sensitive. It's losing spaces from the balance. Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah.
Okay, Councilor Greenberg.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the lifespan of the station. Like the ones that are in Adams Street's parking lot, they're pretty old. I don't know. Do they have to get upgraded and changed?
So the ones in the Adams Street lot are green spot chargers. That was one of the, I think we have 5 lots that we sort of leased to a company to install charging stations a few years back. So those are theirs. I know they're working. They are a bit old, but that would be kind of at their discretion to replace. I think we have something in the contract about they have to be, functional. But I don't know. Biffy and new standard is not in the contract, but they do last a number of years on all of our charge point ones, which is what we'll be going forward with here. We pair the installation with kind of a parts and labor warranty. So anytime anything kind of starts, and this does happen, quite often, not for each station, but within a portfolio of now almost 50 chargers. You do run in cases where we just happened here in the War Memorial. I'm guessing, I think like a 7-year-old charging station, we had to just replace it. But
I would guess
Yeah.
as electric cars become more technically advanced, that the charging stations would have to change, is that right? Or,
well, the stations won't have to change. We just sort of made the switch over. It used to be that there were the plugs that only went to Teslas, and then the plugs for other, and that's sort of now there's like a uniform plug standard, or at least an adaptability on any new plug, which is great. The key thing will be kind of how much power that you want your charging station to deliver. And there's pros and cons on that. However you go, the more power that you deliver, the more you have to pay for it. So anytime you have an electric bill, there's demand charges on that. So what's the actual demand that station is pulling at any given time? And you do get dinged for that pretty good. So if you have our level 2, 7 kilowatts versus like a 100 kilowatt fast charger, that's the demand costs of like a small school or something. So now you're paying for that. So
thank you,
You're
thank you.
Counselor Maliki.
I think you said we have 50 chargers around the city.
yes, we've got, I think, 48 of our charge point ones that we've installed. 24 charging stations, 48 ports are publicly accessible. We have some that serve just city fleet.
Vehicles,
Yeah.
And so the vast majority are charge point, not
Yes.
the green spot. Because I
Right.
saw this Brookline.news article, but it's bizarre.
Yeah, I don't think I
Green
did.
spot, they were like putting over chargers because they weren't getting used. Like a third of their
Interesting.
towns chargers. Yeah, check Brookline.news. It's very, I don't know why, because they're so much like us. But basically is our experience that our publicly available chargers, are they getting used most of the time?
Yes, I have much more visibility into our charge point ones because I have we own those, so I have the dashboard viewing usage statistics on all of them. Those have great usage. Pretty much across the system, there's not a station that's at least being used in any given day. They don't sit idle. Green spot, I have less insight into kind of the day-to-day usage. My assessment, and it's not super detailed,
The system, it sounds like.
is they get used. We have them in, I think, 5. There's an Auburndale, Adams Street, Newton Corner, the Richardson lot, Pearl Street lot, and the Pleasant Street lot. So we have them in 5 lots, the green spot ones. It may be at some point that we want to, when our term with them ends, swap those out, put in charge point ones, and kind of just take over. But at the moment, we're expanding rather than replacing currently existing ones.
And so right now,
Yeah.
Newton North has, I think you said 2 in each lot. Is that 2 doubles in
Yes.
each lot?
Yep.
And so they would be getting 3 more doubles in the lower level.
Right now, that's kind of how the grant got approved. Ideally, we would do 2 there and 1 over on the Walnut Street
Uh-huh.
side. We're gonna see if they'll allow us to do that.
And
but-
those lots are just for teachers and other staff, not students, or can students use them too?
Not students, no. North students, I think, generally are required to park on the street.
Elsewhere, yeah.
But outside of school hours, they're open lots. So
So it's for the sporting events or whatever. And are they all the level 2?
Yeah.
So that is sort of the medium fast that you charge in like maybe 4 hours, 5 hours, something like that, or is it?
Depends on time of year.
Oh.
That's in mind because I'm just
Yeah.
going through winter forever. I would say a full charge on a level 2 charger, 9 to 10 hours.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that somebody who's coming for the day would get
Yep.
most of their.
Although if you're stopping in for a couple hours, that can keep you going. So it is helpful. I think our average usage session is somewhere around 6 hours. So that's employees coming to work, that's people charging overnight, and then it's also, so that might be your 10-hour session, and then there's people stopping in for a couple hours at the library,
And is we don't own the equipment, the company owns the equipment?
For the charge points, we own those.
Oh, we own them?
Yes.
Okay. And are we splitting somehow, are they making their money up front, or are they making money as people use electricity as well?
No, they're just making the money on selling us the product.
Okay, and then do we make money on the electricity that people use?
We are pretty close to break even right now on it. We were for a number of years charging 20 cents a kilowatt hour. That was sort of par with our electricity costs years back. Electricity's only gotten more expensive, so we just raised it up to 30 cents a kilowatt hour, which is a big increase, but electricity's.
So we're actually losing money in the electricity itself?
We were losing money. I would say now it's hard to tell exactly what the all-in per kilowatt hour costs for electricity is because you have to factor in demand costs and all of that. I would say at most of our sites we're somewhere in the range of 27 to 28 to maybe like a little over 30 cents a kilowatt hour. So we're pretty close to.
So we're charging
sort of
47 or
break.
something, and we're paying 30. you think?
We're charging 30. We're being charged by EverSource close to 30. thereabouts.
Oh, okay, so we're making.
I wouldn't say we're making any. I'd say we're pretty close to par on the basic electricity costs. Then we also have somewhere around per charging station $1,000 in costs annually, covering cloud network subscription costs and the parts and labor warranty piece. So when you factor all that in, we're losing a little bit of money on it, but we're not subsidizing it quite as strongly as we were a year
And
ago.
do we adjust the rate we're charging periodically, or only when our electricity contract changes?
We didn't adjust it for a number of years. We now want to have a consistent sort of review every 2 years period because electricity costs change, not just in terms of when our electricity supply contract gets re-upped or changed, but costs are changing all the time. So we want to look at it on a consistent sort of basis to keep it pretty close to what we pay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah,
Thank you.
agreed.
Great, Joe. Counselor Sharp.
Some of my questions actually were just asked, so thank you. I was also wondering about the payments that the drivers are making versus and how all those go. I think this week I'm feeling particularly chagrined that I don't have an EV as I'm seeing all the gas prices spiking. But do the users have is it sort of a individual cloud-based payments, sort of similar to our parking meters, where anyone can just kind of go in and immediately set it up, or do people have an account that they have through ChargePoint, and ChargePoint is also doing like like the software as a service in addition to the actual hardware. Can you just sort of like tease it out a little bit?
They do. There's a little app. You download the ChargePoint app. You use that to pay. There's no fee for users in using that app. It's basically, you pull up your little wallet, you tap it on there, and then it charges you.
And then during the day, people can see, as they're payments going.
Yeah, you can watch it.
Yeah, and generally, we think that we're as I just took it. We think that we're charging about the same as what people would be paying if they were charging their car at home. It's just that like they're particularly they're a teacher or their car's gonna be sitting there for a long time. There's no like arbitrage, right?
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, it's so much cheaper for me to charge it here.
It might be slightly cheaper, but I think that would only be a factor of oftentimes the rate what people pay for electricity at home is maybe a little bit more expensive than what we pay as the city. That's depending on our supply contracts and all that. What exactly? But so they could, arbitrage it, but they wouldn't be. More power to them. It wouldn't be much. Yeah. No.
And then my other question was around sort of the deterioration, or depreciation of the hardware. So it sounds like we put in most of these 24 charging stations in the last few years. Only one of them out of 24 we've had to replace so far. But generally, do we have a sense of what the depreciation schedule would be for these, and so how much we should be thinking about sort of on an annual basis, how much we would need to be putting into even like putting away into savings to think about future replacements?
It's a good question. I've never had an incident or experienced an instance where a charging station hasn't been working and we haven't put in the request saying, hey, this is not working, and they've gone and replaced it. In kind of the contract with them, there's no like that parts and labor sort of process terms out for like major system renewal over 10 years or something like that. So I'm hopeful that we never reach the point where we can't just get a new charging station. The stations themselves are really, I don't know if you looked at any of the like price breakdowns there, but it's a pretty small part of the overall costs for these. So I'm not surprised if ChargePoint has a pretty good sort of like, warranty system that allows them to make a decent buck while also being pretty generous with the care they put into the charging station.
So it may be that our warranty is sort of actually kind of paying for that, like
I think it's
annualizing the cost of whenever those would be.
That's nice. Yes.
How long is the warranty for?
We pay for it, renew it on a regular basis.
So it's just there's no time limit to it.
Yep.
Okay. So is the sort of the station itself sort of doesn't wear out, but it's the electronics inside it that has to keep.
Usually you'll see like the plugs break down. The one here at the War Memorial, we couldn't figure out exactly what was wrong with it, and eventually they just replaced it because I don't know exactly.
So the $1,000 per station roughly annual maintenance, that's actually the cost of the warranty? Or is that other stuff?
That's both the parts and labor warranty as well as the cloud network subscription costs. So that's how it can communicate.
Other comments or questions? Do we have a motion on this item? Motion to approve by Counselor Bixby. Any further comments or questions before we vote? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We have unanimous approval. Thank you so much.
Very much, counselors.
Thank you.
out for the next one, although
Okay, all right.
kick it off.
Very good,
Yep.
thank you. So we're gonna go on to 101-26, a request to accept and expend a grant of $50,000 to complete the MVP 2.0 process. We are joined online by Chief Environmental Planner Jennifer Steele, and Mr. Nyman sticking around to help out on this one as well. Ms. Steele, welcome, and would love to turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. I know that some slides were provided to the committee members, and I gather they're available. If anyone would like to see those again, I'd be happy to walk through them, or just give a brief verbal introduction.
What are folks interested? Do you like the slides up or? Sure, yeah, that's a good idea. I think Councilor Maliki makes a good point. Why don't we put them up so that the public can see them?
Oh, yeah, sure.
And just really quickly go over them with any other comments you wanted to share.
So would you like me to share my screen then?
That would be great.
Or, okay, let me pull them up here.
Yeah, okay, but I can also do it.
Okay.
Pull it out of the way and move you folk. Okay, so sorry, let me. So the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program has been around. It's a state-sponsored program, and it's been around for a handful of years now. And we, the City of Newton, took advantage of the so-called MVP 1.0 program to do our initial climate action planning, our initial vulnerability assessment and initial climate action plan. The state has since updated their program, and in order to remain eligible for the MVP action grants, municipalities have to undertake this so-called MVP 2.0 process, which is a very highly prescribed process with every aspect of it defined by the state, and fortunately, every penny paid for it by the state. So goals of the MVP 2.0 program are different from the MVP 1.0 focus because they're really focused on equity. They're very interested in having members of the community who have not traditionally been involved with resiliency discussions or, in fact, grant getting in the resiliency and climate action realm to be involved in a planning process and ultimately in the implementation of what they're calling a seed grant. A seed project. So the goals of their program are really to build a broader community by prescribing city staff involvement from multiple departments, by identifying community liaisons who will actually be paid to be part of this 2-year process, and having the support of an equity partner that is a person who is provided by the state specifically for Newton's efforts, and a planning vendor that we are able to hire thanks to the state grant funding to help run the process itself. And so the program also uses using a different set of guidelines, a different set of tools that the state has developed and is providing, and of course a different funding mechanism. And as I said, all of this is absolutely required if the city wishes to remain eligible for action grants, which we have used in the past, most recently for the large flood storage, stormwater storage efforts incorporated in the Albemarle Field area to take stormwater runoff from Craft Street, and all of the stream bank restoration efforts that were incorporated into that project along the shores or along the banks of Cheesecake Brook. So the program really is divided into 2 phases, if you will, the first planning phase, and then the second, the implementation of the seed project. So the outcome of phase 1 is through the engagement with these different municipal representatives is to identify a seed project. And so that whole effort of community engagement and planning is the first phase, and to be funded with $50,000 from the state for phase 1. So that involves building out the team, identifying the so-called lived expertise of these members of the community who are known as community liaisons. Actually recruiting and arranging for payment for their time. It's a significant commitment, and so the state is really putting their money where their mouth is to encourage people who might not otherwise be able to dedicate the time to allow them to do so. And then there is, as I say, a very prescriptive process for gathering team members together, soliciting community input through community outreach, updating and revising our resilience priorities that were identified in our municipal vulnerability 1.0 efforts and our recently completed CAP 2.0, and then ultimately identifying and planning a seed project. There will be an additional $50,000 coming from the state for the implementation of seed project. The state has provided a sample budget, and it's tiny print, but I did just want to point out a couple of the highlights here is that they do identify for the budgeting purposes that one should anticipate paying these community liaisons for their time at $40 an hour. There is direct funding directly made available to planning vendors. They anticipate roughly 30,000 of the 50,000 going to pay planning vendors. And they also provide money for direct costs, food for community events, translation services, so that if there are different language needs identified, we can have materials translated and the like. So a very comprehensive effort that the state has put together. And we are ready to accept the state contract and accept the state grant if you are interested in so voting. And with that, I'll take questions.
Thank you very much. What questions and comments do we have from the committee? Councilor Greenberg.
Thank you. I'm curious, Ms. Steele, how the community liaison folks are going to be chosen and who gets to make that decision?
Yeah, so we have, as I mentioned really briefly, we've been assigned by the state a so-called equity partner. And that person is, in our case, a young person named Marissa, who has been trained in this whole process by the state, and we'll be looking very, very strongly to her suggestions as to how to go about this process. We obviously have a lot of inside knowledge, with all of the city staff members from not only the sustainability folks, but public health people, DPW, and the like, public safety. So we have a lot of resources that we can help provide the state, but the state will also be providing us with resources, census data, and information out of their equity office. So I think it will be a joint effort to pull together the information and then ultimately meeting people and identifying those people who are most interested and able to commit to the 2-year process. So it would be wonderful if we were overrun with applicants and really had a challenge in selecting just 5. I hope that we have that problem. But I think it is also going to be challenging to identify people who can make this kind of a commitment on behalf of the city. So the short answer is I don't know at this point because we haven't begun the process with the state, but they are providing a lot of direction for us through this whole process.
And you're looking for folks who live in areas that are underserved?
Well, so community liaisons might be drawn from folks in communities where language has traditionally been a barrier to involvement, to community engagement, where age or mobility has perhaps been a barrier. Renters often don't have a voice in decision making and planning. Children and youth in our schools who often don't have a voice or a vote. So elderly, disabled, minority communities, language barrier communities, renters, and the like are all populations that we will be looking to engage with in initial discussions and better understand their interests, both in issues of climate mitigation and resiliency and interests in involvement. And we're hoping to gather all of these voices in these new conversations. Did that answer the question?
Yes. Sounds like
Thanks.
an excellent program. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Do we have other comments or questions? Counselor Chark.
Just wondering about the general timing of this. Is this like summer 2026 to summer 2027 for year one? And then we would be implementing the second year roughly summer 27 to 28?
Yes, the timing, Sam, keep me honest here if you remember, but it all started last week. We had the initial kickoff meeting. Thankfully, it was at the Newton Public Library for the entire metro region area here, so we were able to host, where we actually met for the first time the state representatives and were able to meet our equity partner very briefly. So they are anticipating that the initial planning process and community liaison solicitation and engagement will begin, I think next month, basically. Planning efforts are, they have a very prescribed, if I can find the process summary here, I can do another, where did you all go? My screen share, process summary there. So just to give you an indication of how very prescriptive the process is, this is put out by the state, and they define what their program is about, who will be on the core team, what will qualify as a seed project. They're looking at environmental justice populations and priority populations as defined by the state. I don't want to take too much of your time, but then they go through this very sort of carefully choreographed effort process with timelines defining each one of the phases as they go through. So the entire process is 2 years. The development of the core team is intended to take 5 months, and then really the work of planning another 6 months, and then you have essentially a year to implement the seed project that is the outcome of the planning process in phase 2. And they identify all of the different players here. There is a municipal project manager. Caroline Weiss is taking on that role. All of the municipal staff who need to be involved to really round out the expertise of the sustainability group, and all the core community liaison folks. So it's very, very prescribed. They have a number of products that we need to use, workbooks and homework sheets that we have to fill in and submit to them timely, walking us all the way through the process. So we will be kept on task by their process, our planning vendor, and their equity partner.
Counselor Malky.
So I find certain aspects of this a little odd, the strange terms they've created, and now you're telling me workbooks and homework. So I take it, I think you answered one of my questions. The kickoff was just last week. Nobody's done this yet. Everybody's starting at the same time.
Oh, no, good question. We're actually round 2. There was a pilot project where they started working, I want to say it was 15 communities that they sort of beta tested this with. And then there was an initial group, because of the timing of our MVP 1.0 efforts, we're part of year 2 of the actual, there was pilot year 1, and we're now cohort year 2. So there are some municipalities ahead of us, Natick, for example. I don't want to try to name them because I will do it wrong. But anyway, there are a number of communities that are 1 year ahead of us. And we have been in preliminary conversations with them, soliciting suggestions for planning partners, tips and tricks, lessons learned, tripping hazards to avoid, and so on. So we're hoping for a really smooth rollout.
That's good. Is there any sense yet of what they have, sort of examples of what projects they've done? Or
no, I don't know of any of the seed projects having been identified yet, that might have been identified yet. Everyone is just, the cohort 1 is just coming up to seed project, being funded for their second year. The start of year 1 for us is about to begin, and so the start of year 2 is about to begin for them. So I'm not aware that there may be some communities that are a little bit ahead of schedule, but I'm not familiar with them.
And is this being applied statewide, or is any community in the state eligible?
It is being applied statewide. Every community is eligible. Some communities, particularly smaller Western towns, are getting together and doing regional applications for the money and for the seed project development and implementation. But it is a statewide program.
And is the 50,000, is that the same for each community, regardless of the population of the community?
Yes, I understand that if you are applying as a regional team, that they have some flexibility with the funding and could increase the funding if it's a large scale regional group and or a large scale regional seed project.
It's going to be interesting what you can do with 50,000 in Newton as opposed to, I don't know, Dunstable or someplace. And is Marissa, how many communities will she be the equity partner for?
I don't know. We haven't had the official presentation of Marissa to us. We just got early word that she was going to be our equity partner, but we haven't met her formally. We haven't had a kickoff meeting with Newton's interests in mind yet. We just happen to know sort of early on the down low that she's going to be ours.
Last question for me anyway is how do you plan to sort of publicize or get the word out to try to recruit community liaisons?
Yeah, that again, we're going to be leaning heavily on the equity partners to understand what has worked well for them with other communities. The idea is that they are coming in with experience in this, but we do have a number of outlets that we've been using in our different climate action efforts. So we have email lists. We have our local partners. Green Newton, obviously top amongst them, our houses of faith, and so on. Schools. We've got quite an established network of communications outlets, and we'll be eager to hear what the equity partner might suggest as new ones, because we really do want to do things differently, reach different people, and so we know that's going to take different mechanisms. But all of that really is yet to be determined, as we only just had the kickoff meeting when we were basically, it was the introduction to the program, the introduction to the concept of equity partners and to planning vendors. We have yet to send out our request for proposals for our planning vendor. As I say, we have yet to actually be provided officially, Marissa, and we have yet to really begin the process. So lots of new experiences to be had. But I think we're starting from a very strong footing, having such a strong recent effort with the climate action plan. We have the hazard mitigation plan. We have the comprehensive comprehensive, help me out, Sam, CEMP, Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan, and many other really good foundational documents that were built on really good foundational processes. And so we'll be leaning heavily on those.
Okay, well, that'll be interesting to see how you do that, because to me, I don't feel that the people who are sort of underserved, underrepresented in the city are the same people that are kind of wired into all our climate action stuff. So.
Right. And that's where we're really going to try to deviate from, the past practices. So this is designed to be a very different process from those that we've undertaken to date.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
How will the city council be involved in this process?
That's an interesting question. I think with regular updates, they certainly there will be many opportunities for general public involvement. We would certainly welcome engagement then. It's accepting the grant would be a great first step. It's not a product that needs to be I should say the identification of the seed project isn't one that needs city council approval, and the execution of it similarly won't require any city funds or city council approval, but we would absolutely welcome city council input throughout the process and then throughout the implementation phase.
Thank you.
I just wanted to slightly amend onto what you just said there, Jennifer.
Please.
Depending on what the seed project is, it may very well require city council approval. And certainly if we're getting another 50,000 grant from the state, we'll be coming back to you all, set that 50,000 then, and it will be geared towards this particular seed project. So we'll have an opportunity to discuss it in a very formal setting then. But I would say as we kind of launch out on this kind of community input engagement phase, we certainly have a lot of avenues that we'll want to explore to get the word out. I know you all have kind of communities that you're rooted in as well, so we'll be grateful for any kind of assistance or any insight you have. Anything like that.
Well, I look forward to the updates. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really exciting process because it is so different from anything that certainly that I've been involved with the city, for now 13 years. So I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah.
Do we have other comments or questions? Do we have a motion on this item? Councilor Charm. Councilor Charm moves approval. Any other discussion before we vote? I'll just quickly comment. This is interesting and different, and I'm looking forward to see what we learn and gain from it, and where this leads, and perhaps into MVP 3.0. So. To be continued, but thank you for answering all the questions, and please do stay in touch as it goes forward, because I think you have piqued our interest.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to have a robust outreach and a public engagement process in place soon, and we will make sure that you are all tied into that. Thank you.
Well, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we have unanimous approval, and that concludes our business for this evening. So we are adjourned at 8:03. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.